Following a comprehensive 3-year investigation by my office, including witnesses, interviews with more than 65 witnesses, and review of millions of documents that were submitted by Mr. Trump and others, I am announcing that today we are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump for violating the law as part of his efforts to generate profits for himself, his family, and his company. The complaint demonstrates that Donald Trump falsely inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself and to cheat the system, thereby cheating all of us. He did this with the help of the other defendants, his children, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump, and former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg and Trump Organization Controller Jeffrey McConney. Mr. Trump and the Trump Organization repeatedly and persistently manipulated the value of assets to induce banks to lend money to the Trump Organization on more favorable terms than would otherwise have been available to the company, to pay lower taxes, to satisfy continuing loan agreements, and to induce insurance companies to provide insurance coverage for higher limits and at lower premiums. This conduct was all in violation of Executive Law, Section 6312, which gives the Attorney General broad and special powers to go after persistent and repeated fraud and illegality. As part of demonstrating illegality under that section of Law 6312, we show that they violated several state criminal laws, including falsifying business records, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud, and engaging in a conspiracy to commit each of these state law violations.
Well, Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, and Letitia James she is, if nothing else, she is tenacious. Welcome to the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Let It Be Known, and without question, Donald Trump and his family is in hot water, at least in New York, and at least civilly. Letitia James did refer this to the U.S. Attorney General for potential prosecution, but this is a lawsuit. This is not a criminal prosecution. Letitia James says she does not have the authority to bring criminal charges. But Attorney Tarver, I'm going to start with you because she listed a slew of just criminal violations, really. I mean, can you break down what this is all about? Can you break down why this is only civil and not at this point criminal?
Certainly. Well, in the state of New York, the Attorney General's office has a certain prescription. They don't do by and large criminal prosecutions. That's left to the individual state's attorneys in that particular state. But this is a civil lawsuit, and a civil lawsuit is a lawsuit that is confined to seeking monetary damages as well as sanctions. You can't put someone in jail for a civil lawsuit, but that's not what she's looking for here. What she's alleging is she's saying this is widespread fraud, and it's the kind of fraud that all of us know about because any of us who fill out applications for loans or anything else like that know that you're not supposed to lie on those applications, and if you do lie on those applications, you face penalties. What she's saying is that Donald Trump, over a 10-year period, inflated his personal wealth in filings, in applications for loans, and made his personal wealth seem much higher than it actually was. And the reason he did that was to be able to get favorable loan rates, to be able to get insurance rates which were favorable, and basically to cheat these companies out of the real knowledge of knowing what he was actually worth. And this is, interestingly, very plain and simple for people to understand. This is something that we all go through. Any of us who fill out applications for mortgages and things of that nature, we know how serious it is. You get those black letter lines that say, do not lie on these applications because you could be subject to penalties. Now, she brought this lawsuit in the state of New York, but the most interesting part of this is that she made the referral to other agencies. Fraud in the civil context, it of course subjects you to penalties which are civil, no loss of liberty. But fraud is also a criminal offense. And those criminal offenses that she laid out can be referred and will be referred to other agencies. She's laid out a roadmap for being able to convict him in a criminal court.
Robin Massengill, you're in the district area, DC area. About 10 years ago, Kwame Brown, the council leader in DC, similar situation. He was sentenced to community service, probation, and I think he 1 day in jail for very similar charges that Tish James is going after the Trump family. And we all probably remember in Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick, another Kwame, the former mayor there, 28 years in prison for similar. Now, there was some other charges with Kwame Kilpatrick, but the whole bank fraud and wire fraud thing, 28 years. And ironically, Robin, after 8 years, Donald Trump pardoned Kwame Kilpatrick. I mean, talk about that, if you will.
Well, I mean, Trump is a criminal. And throughout his presidency, one of the things that he, prided himself on was pardoning other criminals, surrounding himself by other criminals. So the fact that maybe the chickens that might be coming home to roost for him is an interesting prospect. It'll be interesting to see what SDNY does with this. I wouldn't hold my breath that much will come of it, but at least something is happening in the justice system finally for him. And Tish James's outline was incredible.
She called it a staggering case of fraud. She says these acts of fraud and misrepresentation were similar in nature, were committed by upper management at the Trump organization as part of a common endeavor for each annual statement and were approved at the highest levels of the Trump organization, including by Donald Trump himself. Barrington, I know that I know your thoughts on where this will ultimately end up. But he has this situation in New York. We know the raid on Mar-a-Lago, or the raid is the word we use, but nonetheless, we also know what's going on in Georgia. The district attorney there down in Georgia is still investigating his Donald Trump's interference in the election in 2000. Barrington, your thoughts overall? How is he? I think somebody alluded to it earlier that he's always done this. He's always been able to get away with this. But your thoughts on where Tish James is taking this?
I am ecstatic, but not getting overly excited because he's been able to dodge us before. But I do think about Al Capone, who killed quite a number of people, committed God knows how many crimes, and ended up being imprisoned for tax evasion. So, that gives me some hope. I've always called the Trump family, the Trump mafia family, they're criminals of the highest order. And it seems like for his entire 74 years, he's never been held accountable for anything he's done. I was laughing last night when he put out something somewhere on one of the social media outlets talking about why would they try to attack his children, his grown-ass children. They're not 5 and 6 years old. They're not Barron's age, and they've always been vice presidents or executive vice presidents for all of his organizations. So all of them have been involved, and I hope all of them end up in prison.
It seems like it's interesting, and anyway, you guys can speak to this. It seems like when you peel back everything, it seems like he ran for president, and so a lot of us said, well, it was only for his brand. He didn't really want to win, but now when you peel it all back, it seems like he ran for president to become president so that he thought it would inoculate him from all of this. And listening to him speak, because the situation at Mar-a-Lago, he felt, well, you can't do this to a former president. Everything, during his whole presidency, he's the only president, right, to never reveal his tax returns. Everything was, I'm the president.
Well, look, he has used the presidency in the past to insulate himself. I don't believe he ran for president the first time believing that it was going to inoculate him, because he never believed, he's the type of person that would never believe that he was heading in this direction. And I can tell you, his bravado is unbelievable. What this man believes. And I can only tell you that because I was the city attorney for Atlantic City at one particular time, and we had to negotiate with Trump and his people. He's got a 5-minute attention span. He's not focused. He believes that he is superior to everyone in the room. So he's not the type of person who even believes that he had a weakness. Now, I think that the reason why he may be running this time, or may decide to run, is because he believes that there's some inoculation as being either an elected president or a candidate. He believes wrong, because either of those things is not going to protect him from a criminal prosecution.
But I'm sorry, when you hear people like Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina say, basically there's going to be riots or something if you try and arrest him, and you hear these other groups, these whatever you want to call them, Proud Boys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, join in with Lindsey Graham with that, saying it's almost like it's not a warning. It's not a listen, be careful type thing. It's a more like, this is what we're going to do.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, but he's still the most powerful figure in what used to be the Republican Party. And it's interesting because they attach themselves to an animal that they thought they could control, the MAGA masses. And now none of the quote unquote conventional Republicans can do or say anything because they're afraid of being primaried, of being attacked by these fools and that type of stuff. But I was just thinking that the biggest mistake Trump made was running for president, because if he had stayed a private citizen, none of this stuff would have come out, and he could have continued to do what he was doing with impunity.
Robin, it was a 220 page. That's the thing, Robin. 220 pages of this lawsuit that Letitia James filed.
Well, I mean, it spanned 2001 to 2021. That's 10 years. That's over significant properties. They were talking about 40 Wall Street. They're not just talking about one location. They're talking about everywhere he has been. Yeah. He has been doing this. So it's not surprising, given the number of counts, given the conspiracy theories, the state and federal laws involved, that it would be that many pages over 11 years. I'm surprised it's not more. And I'm sure that people's head would be spinning. My head was spinning when I looked at the valuation. Like, Mar-a-Lago is at 75 million and he values it at 750 million. Like, who but a complete narc? But and like Attorney Tarver said, he thought he was above the law. He never thought that any of this would catch up with him. And so I'm not at all surprised that it's not a tomb of a complaint.
Yeah, think about the lies were like $50 million of the valuation. That is more than the budget of most municipalities, the entire real estate base of most municipalities. But Stacey, one of the things we didn't talk about yet, which I think is most significant here, is what exactly could come out of this lawsuit and what the sanctions actually are. Because that's what's really serious here. And it is probably more painful to him and his family than actually going to jail for a short period of time or getting a conviction. Because what she's seeking to do is she's seeking to bar Trump and his family from ever doing business under the Trump name and the Trump Corporation name in the state of New York. Him under his private name, the corporation as well, and the other individuals. But that's not even the biggest part. The biggest part is she's seeking, if she's successful in this lawsuit, to have all of the banks who are registered in the state of New York to be barred from doing business with Donald Trump. And the kicker with that is that's not limited to New York. What that means is banks who are registered in New York would not be able to do business with Trump or the Trump Corporation anywhere in the United States or the world. And I don't know a bank that's not registered in the state of New York. So that would
Wow.
effectively cut off his entire money source, and that would destroy Trump and his organization.
And
Wow.
Robert is right, because there was a piece that I read in Foreign Policy magazine a couple of years ago that broke down all the money he owes. They said he owes like $600 million to the Chinese,
Hmm.
650 million to Russian oligarchs, and he has like 400 to 600 million that's coming due from the banks now. So what Robert said is absolutely correct. His butt is in a slinger, because if he can't push those debts down the road or get more money to keep himself solvent, then he's pretty much done.
Well, Attorney Tarver, they may not arrest him, but isn't his children at just as much, if not greater, risk of arrest?
Well, not of arrest in this particular case, unless they fail to do something. You know, if we're talking arrest, we're talking about the criminal case, and really the biggest news out of yesterday was, in my opinion, not even necessarily the lawsuit. Part of the biggest news was the idea that the 11th Circuit kicked Judge Cannon in the teeth for that
How about
appeal
that?
stroke in Florida, and said, you know what, get out of here. They delivered a real smackdown and said the Justice Department can continue with its lawsuit. But there's a couple of things to look at here. No, the children are not going to be arrested on that. But just remember, all of them are going to need legal representation. And they've done it through a variety of sources. They've done it through the RNC on certain cases. They've done it through private corporations, and they've done it through some of the fundraising that they did, which you're going to hear about on September the 28th when the committee comes back. Just remember, if they are barred from doing business with these banks, law firms are not going to want to be involved with them. This suit that Tish James filed is going to make it incredibly hard for him to be able to retain counsel for long-term legal actions. And that down in Florida, that Mar-a-Lago thing is a long-term legal action. If he were brought up on charges in January 6th, that's a long-term legal action. They don't get their money necessarily up front in those types of cases. So you're going to find people who are affected by this in so many different ways.
Well, in addition to that, right, there's the legal investigators and witnesses that you may have to fly into court, or you know, the whole process. It's not
Thousands
just
and
the
thousands
attorney,
of
right?
pages of documents.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they had 65 witnesses come forward for just this case. So it's like he's what they got him for billions in inflation. He's gonna have billions in attorney's fees.
Yeah, you mentioned
he's
earlier.
known for not paying his attorneys.
Right. Look, even Rudy Giuliani made a big thing about that a couple of years ago, right? But you mentioned, listen, you mentioned him running, but will this, you know, be enough of a distraction to keep him from running?
No, he's gonna run.
He's gonna run.
He's gonna run.
And he's gonna run, especially now.
Yeah. The only thing that that these folks can do is find a way to bar him from running, because he ain't going to prison. I mean, Alan Weisenberg, is that his name?
That's his name. Yep.
He pled guilty to 15 felonies and he got 5 months.
Well, he agreed to testify against Trump.
No, he didn't testify against Trump. He wouldn't name Trump.
He agreed to testify against the organization, though, right?
Organization, but not Trump.
Not Trump. Yeah.
And you have brothers and sisters who sell a bag of weed and they were in prison for life.
Yes.
So this is just an indication, an illustration of the farce that is the so-called criminal justice system. And she says it's no different for rich and poor. Merrick Garland says the same thing, but we're not blind. We can see. So us getting all crazy about he needs to go to jail, he might go to jail for a week.
Well, Robin,
I want him to go to prison for the rest of his natural life.
That's what right.
Well, will the Democrats be able to use this in the elections, or is this something they should just stay away from?
Well, the question isn't what can Democrats use. The question is, will the Democrats use it? They have enough. The Democrats have enough with abortion rights, with everything Trump has done before, with the question of authoritarianism, with the question of dictatorship, the question of democracy. The question is, do the Democrats have the balls, quote unquote, to use this information in the way that the Republicans would?
But here's the truth. it's almost as if there's a huge wave pulling the Democrats. This whole thing with Roe v. Wade,
Yep.
the goddamn Hail Mary for the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Because they were getting.
But isn't it a matter, Barrington, of them knowing how to use that?
That's exactly right.
Now they're getting smart, because I saw a stat yesterday saying that they have had like they spent like $120 million, $28 million on abortion advertisements, and that they have a whole palette of advertisements and different plans that they're going to use. They're finally getting smart, because the thing that really always, and Stacey, I've said it, Democrats are weak and feckless. They're in power and they're afraid to use the power. And then you're dealing with someone like Mitch McConnell and all the rest of them SOBs who do not care. How can you fight someone by a set of rules when they are playing with no rules?
You use their rules. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you use their rules.
I'm afraid.
I think Barrington makes a great point. You really have to ask yourself, use it in what way? Everyone can see what Donald Trump is doing, and he still has his support amongst his base. So it makes no sense to dedicate resources against Donald Trump. He is obvious. People who are going to vote for him are going to vote for him. People who are not going to vote for him. The question is how much of Trumpism has infected the electorate. And the idea that you talk about Trumpism as opposed to Trump is important, because you have people like DeSantis, who is not Trump, but he's engaged in Trumpist actions. And you have other persons who are Trumpists. That's what you attack, not necessarily Donald Trump. Donald Trump is old news. Quite frankly, even the strength of the Republican Party does not want him to run. The base wants him to run. But the strength of the Republican Party, and when I say the strength, I'm talking about this. They don't want him to run. They know that's a losing proposition for him.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of running,
they will back him if he does run.
Yeah, they will.
They will back him if he runs.
They back a dead donkey as long as it had a red R on it saying Republican. That's something you learn.
But speaking of running, and this is a little off topic, but did anybody catch the 60 Minutes interview with President Biden last week, where he actually kind of dialed back this idea that he's going to seek a second term?
Yeah, I saw that.
What do you make of that?
He's really not going to seek a second term. I think what was important for him was not to allow that to become the talking point.
Yeah.
Democrats have gotten a little smarter in what they're doing, and they are trying to be more focused. So to the extent that he doesn't become the story, you'll see Biden dialing back. You see a lot of these people are really dialing back and starting to stay on message. And like Robin said, the Democrats have not been able to stay on message at all. Yeah. But you're seeing a lot of that this time around, so they deserve at least some credit.
So, Robin, what happened? How did they all of a sudden smarten up?
I think they're not getting when I look at my texts these days from the Democratic Party, they're not getting the money from the Democratic base that they used to get, unfortunately, because we are tired of feeling like losers. We are tired of watching someone say that something's gaslit. We're tired of being gaslit. We are tired of having the power and not using the power. So I think the Democratic Party understands that it's on a precipice. We will stand back and stand back if you guys do not start to deal with the base at a level that makes us feel like there's some empowerment here. And I think that they understand that the Democratic Party understands that now.
But Democrats are foolish because they continue to try to attract Reagan Democrats.
Right.
They ignore Black people.
Yep.
They ignore Latinos. They ignore the true people who are really, really their support and their base, trying to run after this fanciful thing that these people ain't never going to vote for Democrats no more.
They haven't voted for them. What?
30 years, 40 years, right? They're stupid. And I mean, I talked to somebody who was very connected to a DNC, and she was saying that, and this was a couple of years now, but she was saying that only 1 to 2% of all the money that the Democratic Party spent on consultants went to Black people.
Yeah.
And they ignore us until it's a week before elections. They don't come with anything to I've done this, I've done that to you. Because listen, they passed an anti-Asian hate bill. They refused to pass the George Floyd policing bill. They refused to pass the Voting Rights Act, but we got Juneteenth.
Well, I got one for Robin and one for Attorney Tarver. Robin, Greer wants you to speak to the Black women delivering the lawsuit. Black women are the only ones in power all around the country who are prepared and willing to step to Trump. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. It was astonishing and astounding and wonderful to see her standing up there speaking authoritatively about what the findings are in the complaint. To look at, yesterday was also Equal Pay for Women's Day, right? And so you were looking at the Black Women's Health Imperative held this summit about that issue. It did a nice spot on that. It's Black women that got Biden elected. It is Black women that have saved democracy time and time again in this country. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So the fact that you see this bold, beautiful Black people, Black women across the country, there's no fear with us. It's like, get it done. And that's what we're doing, getting it done.
God has jokes, Stacey, because as much as Trump hates Black women are giving him the blues, bruh.
Yes.
I love it.
Attorney Tarver, finally, if you had a client facing this type of these type of allegations that Trump is, how do you go about this? What's your direction for your client?
Well, look, I've had clients who have faced exactly this type of trouble, and Tish James was very smart because they placed Donald Trump and the minions of his corporation in depositions. And Donald Trump did the one thing that was troublesome. He took the Fifth Amendment in a deposition. The problem is, in a criminal case, it protects you and it can't be used against you. But in a civil case, that same Fifth Amendment can be used as an inference that what you asked would have been true. So all the things that he took the Fifth on, when they asked him about his holdings and things of that nature, the judge can, if she would like to, and more likely than not, they will do that, say, you said that you said that the Fifth Amendment applied, and therefore there's an inference that you would have answered in a way that would have been against your interest. So she locked him in, and she also did something very smart. She said, I'm not going to engage in a negotiation for this whole thing. We're going to see this thing through. So look, if I had a client who's in his position, I would be trying to get the best lawyer I could in New York who is known for negotiation. I'd be trying to get someone who is close to that Attorney General's office, because that's really the way out of this thing, is some sort of negotiation. And you have to make it a negotiation that is reasonable enough that you put pressure on her so that she will have to at least make some sort of accommodation without looking like it's politically motivated.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to, unfortunately, leave it there. I know Barrington had a lot more to say. We're going to bring Barrington back. We're going to bring all y'all back, of course. We appreciate Attorney Robert Tarver, the best attorney on the East Coast, at least, if not the entire United States. Tarver Law Firm in New Jersey. And, of course, Robin Massengill, she's in D.C. And Barrington Salmon, NMPA journalist extraordinaire, as I like to say. Thanks for joining Let It Be Known. We will see you guys tomorrow.